For my midterm, I'll be comparing and contrasting the similarities between Plato's allegory of the cave and the 2010 Martin Scorsese film, Shutter Island. If you haven't seen the film yet, I apologize. I will be saying a bunch of spoilers, but it's been out for 8 years, so I feel like it's probably okay. Before we start, we have to first review Plato's allegory of the cave. It's written as a dialogue between Plato's brother Glaucon and his mentor Socrates. Socrates speaks of a number of prisoners chained to the wall inside a dark cave. They can't move their heads, and they face a wall where shadows are being cast from a fire, showing objects of the outside world. When one of the prisoners is forced out of the cave, he's able to see the truth of the world around him. He's able to study his surroundings and even look into the face of the unknowns and form his own theories. The newly enlightened escapee feels obligated to share this new truth with the prisoners in the cave, so they too can be set free from the reality forced upon them. When he returns, he begins to explain this truth of a whole nother dimension of life. The prisoners are unable to imagine this and grow extremely irritated, and eventually even plot to kill him. The story is really an allegory of a philosopher who's able to leave the realm of understanding what's new and analyze the truth. Once enlightened, he's able to now form new theories and analyze the unknowns of this reality. However, he's unaware of how to share the knowledge and ends up turning people away from the truth in the process. The story shows the difficulty a philosopher goes through to lead people into deeper understanding. Plato explains that instead you must slowly guide people to the truth, that it takes time for the fog of ignorance to be lifted, and that unloading everything all at once can actually harden people from reaching enlightenment. Now we can begin to compare the two stories. The film begins with U.S. Marshal Edward Daniels and his new partner Chuck Ohl sailing on a ferry towards Shutter Island. They've been hired to investigate Ashcliffe Hospital for the criminally insane after a patient named Rachel Solando goes missing. Once they arrive, they're greeted by the facility's lead psychiatrist, Dr. John Crawley, who explains that the patient must be somewhere on the island since the dock is the only way on or off. He also explains that Ward C, the housing for the most dangerous patients, is off limits. There's also a mysterious lighthouse on the island that he explains has already been searched and not to look there. While searching for the missing patient, Daniels reveals to his partner that he has an ulterior motive coming to the island. He's in search of a man named Andrew Latus, the arson who Daniel believes burned his apartment down, killing his wife Dolores Chanel years prior. Though there's no record of this man ever being admitted to Ashcliffe, Daniels is convinced he's here. Throughout the film, the staff appears confrontational and Dr. Crawley refuses to give them access to important patient files. When someone who appears to be Rachel Solando turns up with no evidence of where she was or how she escaped, Daniels goes to Ward C in search of answers. There he finds a patient that tells him the doctors are performing experimental tests on the patients and taking them to the lighthouse to be lobotomized. Daniels then regroups with his partner and plans to search the lighthouse. They get separated on the way and Daniel stumbles upon a cave. Inside the cave, he finds a woman who claims to be the true Rachel Solando, who's actually a former psychiatrist at the hospital who discovers the experiments and is forcibly admitted as a patient to keep her quiet. After this encounter, Daniels believes his partner was taken to the lighthouse to be lobotomized, so he finds his way there to rescue him. After he arrives, however, Dr. Crawley is waiting for him to explain that this was all an elaborate test. Edward Daniels is actually Andrew Latus and is a patient of Ward C on the island. The doctor explains that he is the one who murdered his own wife, Dolores Chanel, after she went mad and drowned their children. He explains that Edward Daniels and Rachel Solando are anagrams of their true names, Andrew Latus and Dolores Chanel. He goes on to explain that they've been playing along with Andrew Latus to see if they could help guide him through his own delusions by letting it play out. He says the past attempts of explaining the truth have failed, and this was their last chance to heal him before they would be forced to lobotomize Latus. This overwhelms him and he passes out. The next day, doctors analyze Latus and determine the tests work. They believe he truly does understand the truth and can now leave the island. However, as he sits by Dr. Sheehan, the man pretending to be his partner, Latus says, "Is it worse to live as a monster or to die as a good man?" suggesting that though he knows the truth, he would rather live believing the fantasy of a U.S. Marshal than the truth that he murdered his own wife who killed their children. He would rather die in this reality than accept the truth. The protagonist in this movie, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, is not actually the prisoner that escapes in Plato's cave. Rather, he represents the prisoners. Dr. Crawley represents the enlightened escapee who holds a higher understanding of reality that returns in an attempt to share the truth. But even after a carefully constructed scheme, Latus grasps onto ignorance and returns to reality he's comfortable in, just as the prisoners in Plato's cave.